The funny thing is that we cause ourselves massive amounts of suffering because we make up a story that we never even question. My name is Deb Blum, and this is the Whole Soul Way. It's my signature program that I've been teaching for the past 4 years, and I decided to offer the foundation lessons, exercises, and tools for free on YouTube and all of the major podcast channels. Because I truly believe that the world needs more of us, healed, whole, authentic, and awake. And you know what? I don't want to be a barrier to anyone getting the help that they need. And in fact, I really want to be part of the change. Each lesson builds on the last. So if this is your first time here, make sure that you start at the beginning. This is your invitation. Show up, do the work, and join the movement of souls who are committed to creating a better world, one inner transformation at a time. Let's dive in. What if I took my best guess at a lovely story instead of a painful story? What would happen if I assumed positive intent? My invitation to you is to notice where you automatically go to a story that causes you suffering. And if you find yourself suffering, you're probably in a story, a perception that is based on your wounding. One of the things I'm going to be encouraging you to do is to poke some holes in your perceptions. It's so easy to get stuck on the perception is a universally true perception. And there are very few universally true perceptions. Even things like when you can say, well, it's obvious that's wrong. That was a betrayal. He cheated on her. It's obviously he's wrong. But man, I have just seen so many examples of times where it's just so much more nuanced than that. And my own personal experience is that the things that I did that were damaging in my own marriage were far more complicated. It wasn't a no-brainer that I did something wrong. I know some of you might disagree with that, but I'm just telling you that over the years, it's just become so clear that it's just messy. Things are messy. And I'm not trying to excuse quote unquote bad behavior. But this is no different than with your children. When your children have bad behavior, there's always a need, a feeling of fear, and a perception underneath it all. And if you start to understand this better for yourself, you'll be able to see that they're making up a story too. Your children are making up a story. Other people are making up stories too. They are making up a story based on their childhood, based on their traumas and their attachment wounding. And so every time they make up a story, then they have a cascading series of feelings, fears, and needs. And so if it's happening for you, it's happening for them. And the more that we can understand how this all works, the more that we can not only be compassionate to ourselves in the situation, but we can also give people the benefit of the doubt. So we can assume positive intent with people, and we can also see ways that other people are automatically having a more negative reaction to something we're doing and be able to be sensitive to that. So let me just separate that out for you. So if you have a child and say you are being very firm with them, their perception isn't, oh, mommy had a bad day at work today. Maybe it is, but unlikely. And if they are, it's probably because that's their defense mechanism, is to be grown up before they're really grown up. But that's unusual. What it is usually it's, uh-oh, what did I do wrong? Oh no, oh no, oh no. And then that sets up a fear response inside of them, and that fear response causes them to go into some type of strategy. Maybe it's people pleasing, or maybe it's going and running in their room and hiding, or maybe it's yelling at you. And their need is to feel safe. Their need is to feel like they're okay, to know that their parent isn't really upset with them in that moment because they're a child, okay? Now, as we become adults, it's a little different. We have to become our own parent. We have to give ourselves a lot of the things that we're looking for in the world. And that may sound like a real disappointment to you, but it's the truth. And that is the way we heal, is through parenting ourselves. And we'll get more into that in the future. If you know that for the most part, people are going to be looking at your actions, whatever they are, no matter what great intentions you have, that they are often going to be perceiving them through the foggy lens of their own childhood pain, you can understand why people may get hurt over things that seem like you can't understand why they got hurt over that thing. Okay, so then we move to us, to you, to what's happening with you. And when you are in a situation The more that you understand that you're probably making up a story that is the most painful story possible, then you start to be able to say, wait a second, what would happen if I assumed positive intent? What if I took my best guess at a lovely story instead of a painful story? The funny thing is that we cause ourselves massive amounts of suffering because we make up a story that we never even question. So let's talk about lovely stories. The example that I use often is a simple one. Imagine you're walking down the street or walking down a bike path and you see a friend coming towards you and she is not making eye contact, but you are pretty sure she's got to see you. She's literally in the same space as you. And no matter what you do to get her attention, she doesn't give you any real emotion. In fact, she looks either mad or upset. And so you spend the next 45 minutes on your walk spending the entire time consumed with, what did I do? What did I do wrong? When did I see her last? What happened? Did I do anything? Could I have offended her? Have I just not called her in a long time? Is she mad at me? All of those thoughts. And you're mulling over in your head. And inside you are anxious, you are stressed, you are scared. You're feeling all kinds of feelings. And all of this causes a lot of pain, right? Now, maybe you get home and you continue to think that for a year. Maybe you get home and you call a friend and that friend says, oh, hey, oh my God, yeah, I heard that her dad is really, really sick, or I heard that something else. Or perhaps you call her. This would be the courageous thing to do, is you say, I'm going to actually just call her because maybe something else is going on. And you pick up the phone and you call her and you say, hey, I saw you today and I noticed you were really distracted. I just wanted to make sure you're okay. And guess what? She tells you she's not okay. She just found out that she has breast cancer. What if instead you were able to choose a lovely story? Now, let me just tell you, the reason why it's hard to choose a lovely story is because we have wounding that we haven't reparented, that we haven't healed and integrated. But it's available to you, and you may find there are some things where you can just change your story just like that, because it's really not wounding, it's kind of a bad habit. Okay, so I want you to look for low-hanging fruit like that, places where you can just change your perception because you realize you have been just so totally stuck in your own self-absorbed perceptions of the world. And the idea of this is to not make assumptions and to assume positive intent, or to be gracious, to be generous with your assumptions. I had a situation where my husband and I were in a really, really bad situation for 6 months. It was pretty horrible. It was starting in March, and then school started back up, and a friend of mine who I wondered why I hadn't talked to her through this whole time told me that she assumed that I was mad at her because I hadn't called her since March. And I said to her, oh my God, honestly, it wasn't. I've been going through this really hard time. And I told her. And the truth is, she actually felt embarrassed. And to be honest, I feel like she should, because it was really unfair to me. I felt a little bit abandoned. Now, I was back in a different time in my life, and I was at a time where maybe I was mad at her for not reaching out to me. And I could have reached out and told her what was going on. I joke when I say she should be upset, because based on all of the false perceptions and stories that we make up, the reality is she was insecure. She's insecure, and she had her own worth issues, and she had her own reason why she believed that me not talking to her was everything to do with her. Are you starting to see the pattern that actually when we are wounded, when we live in our ego, we really do believe everything is about us, and we become egocentric just like a child? And that's why becoming a mature woman, we have to see the ego's self-absorption and then choose to be moving beyond the amygdala into the prefrontal cortex, into our highest self, into our wise adult, into our mature woman, into our soul's path, our soul's view. And this is the way. But we have to start to look at these things, and we actually have to admit to ourselves, like, sometimes we've been a little bit jerks. We've been a little self-absorbed. We've been thinking we're the only ones that have a problem. But I want us to also have deep compassion for the reason why we do that is because we got hurt many, many times, and we have false perceptions based on the way our little girl perceived the world. So how do we choose a lovely story? Well, we heal. Sometimes we just disrupt it. I want you to pay attention to places where you are assuming negative intent, assuming that a person is upset with you or is intentionally trying to hurt you, and give a little bit of more generosity, of grace, of making up a lovely story that assumes positive intent. That doesn't just automatically go to the place that that person is trying to hurt you, or that circumstance is somehow intended to be negative for you. But the biggest picture of all of this is to be able to see that everything is there to help us to heal and to grow, and that we can literally have gratitude for circumstances and to be shown our faulty perceptions so that we can heal and move beyond them. So my invitation to you is to begin to look for lovely stories, to notice where you automatically go to a story that causes you suffering. And if you find yourself suffering, you're probably in a story, a perception that is based on your wounding. And if we can begin to see what that story is and question if it's true and be open to another possibility, we may actually find that we're seeing the world more clearly. And so some of the best ways to do that are to ask the question. The first question can just be, is this true? And you may be like, I guess it's possible it's not true. You could ask yourself another question, which is like, what else could be true? Maybe you ask a friend, you call a friend, you say, my perception of a situation is that my husband is totally being a jerk because this is what happened. And then allow us to be able to poke holes in it, to say, what else is possible? Is it possible that he's in pain and, he's reacting because he's in pain? Is it possible that you're being really sensitive right now because some other thing happened? Are you overtired? Right? We can start to poke holes in it. But then another one is, what is the opposite? Because if you can't get to what else is possible, sometimes it's the opposite. Like, my assumption is that my husband is intentionally trying to hurt me. Okay, what's the opposite? That he's intentionally trying to be loving to me? I don't know. Or that he's completely unintentionally hurting me? So what's the opposite? Sometimes you can start to see that if you play around with these things, you can actually find what else is possible. And while that might not be the facts, it starts to loosen our grip, like that hard grip we have on the perception that's rooted in our wounding, rooted in a hole, rooted in our pain, rooted in our child's perception of the world. This is a really important one. I'm excited for you guys to let me know how it feels for you to be going through and exploring it in this way.